The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.
We're so pleased to have on the show award-winning country music singer, multi-instrumentalist, and producer, the one and only Chris Golden. Chris, so good to have you on.
Eric, thanks for your time.
You know what? I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while now, and obviously I've kept up, with all the music endeavors and everything you've done, including with the Goldens. But you've got a lot of stuff going now also this year with all of this new music coming out, a new gospel album.
You're right.
All the work you're doing with your son Elijah, and then your daughter Elizabeth comes on with you too on tour.
Right. So, man, I have to wear a lot of hats to keep in this music business, I tell you.
And you've done it all your life.
I've been doing it since I was pretty young, man.
Yeah.
It's something that always came easy for me, and I credit my brother Rusty, who probably, he left us unexpectedly this past July. But, Rusty, he tried to be Ringo, and then he played drums and was a very successful drummer. He was out on the road with a group called the Rambos when he was 13 years old. So Rusty tried to be like Ringo and Keith Moon, and then he saw Elton John playing piano. He started wanting to be like Elton. He tried to be like all those other ones, and I was just trying to be like Rusty. Right. So he taught me a lot, and it was just something that came easy for us. And I remember one night we were arguing over the drumsticks, and my dad took me up to my room, and we were fussing, and he said, "Hey man," he took his old guitar out. He said, "Look, if I show you a few of these chords, then y'all can play together instead of playing the same instrument. Maybe you need to play something else." So we started playing different instruments then, and then Rusty actually got really good on the guitar too, so we just kind of started switching off a lot.
It's just amazing.
We were in Bruton, our hometown, this past weekend, and a guy come up to me and he said, "Man, your brother came up," and Rusty had been playing piano for years.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of surprised me. He said he come up, we had a lounge band, and he said, "Hey man," they asked him to sit in, and he said, "Well, what do you want to play?" He said, "I'll play drums," and they said he played for an hour. I couldn't believe it. I was like, he still loved to do that too. So.
Well, and I got to bring this up too, because a lot of people may not realize this, but your father is William Lee Golden of the Oak Ridge Boys.
He is.
And you were a member for like 17, 18 years.
I was.
Playing with the Oaks. But, I want to go back a little bit though, Chris. It's like, you started, singing, as a young person.
I actually didn't start singing until I was in my later teens.
Well, I was going to bring up, but musically though, you were surrounded by it down in Alabama.
I was.
When you would go down there with your grandparents and got in your first band at 15 in a gospel band?
Yes, sir. I started skipping school on the weekend to go out with this family group. They were from Nashville, but I remember this when we were down in Alabama, this young group down there. They were not young to me, but they were older to me. But at the time, I look back and they were kind of young. And I remember the guy coming to audition, man. He said, "Man, if you're in it for the money, get out."
Right.
And I have thought about that so many times because I would do it, but for the love of it, whether we got paid or not.
Totally.
We've just been blessed to make a living doing it all these years. But it's actually the love of it that's what keeps me into it. It's not any kind of.
Well, speaking of the love of it, though, too, I have to bring up, with your past albums, and I've enjoyed all your albums that you've done previously, Chris, but, certainly Grateful. 6 #1 hits off that, and you released it like right before, we went into the pandemic.
I did, and I've been milking that one for a little while.
Which is not a bad thing when you've got hits and songs that people know. And I was listening to those tracks, and it's like, they just hold up so well musically. And I know that as a producer as well, you've been spending a lot of time producing other people.
I have, and it goes back to my youth. I remember we used to just multi-track with 2 cassette players when I was young, man, and it sounded terrible. But I was into that when I was 10 years old, playing piano, and then I'd go back and play drums to it, and then try to put guitar to it, and then sing to it or whatever. And so kind of multi-tracking with cassette machines when I was young. And,
I did it too.
I'm dating myself by saying cassette, I guess, but
I used to have an old Fostex.
It's something that I always loved to do, and it's something that I was always into, and we were always pretty hands-on in the studio. When you talk about time, losing track of time, that's when it happened for us, because we'd turn around, it's like, man, we've been in here 15 hours, and just didn't seem like it. Well, let's get a slice of pizza and keep going.
Well, and besides, joining, I think, when you were 18, you got into a Canadian band, right?
I did. That was actually right out of high school. I played with a gospel group, did the Southern Gospel Circuit, playing piano when I was about 15. And then when I got out of high school, I joined my brother's band. We had a group called the Boys Band.
Right.
Wound up on Electra Asylum Records and did
young.
good. Like, 1 month out of high school, I was in Los Angeles playing, and it's like, man, this is easy.
And then at 19, you're on Hee Haw.
That's when I started singing. And I had found out that, actually, I went and auditioned for a movie. And I didn't get the movie. Val Kilmer, it was his debut role. It was called Top Secret. But I remember when I auditioned for the movie, this lady that was there, it was Ed Bruce's wife. And she said maybe something would come on along later that they would keep me in mind for with this hillbilly accent. And she called me not too long ago and said, Hee Haw has a lot of young ladies, but they're looking for a young guy. So I went and auditioned, and they wound up filming my screen test, and they aired that several times. So I didn't get the part, and I was kind of, in hindsight, you look back and you think, well, God had different plans for me. I was more of a singer and an artist than an actor and a comedian, so I thought that, God was looking out for me on that thing, but it did allow me to get to a national audience as a solo act, doing something singing a song that I wrote.
Right.
And
so incredible. Well, but also, I've got to bring this up too. You also just came off a very prosperous tour this past year, the Laugh Out Loud tour.
Well, that was a Christmas tour that we did.
So kind of mixing everything that you love.
Right. I was actually doing some of that Laugh Out Loud Christmas tour with a friend of mine, Jamie Regal, who is a comedian.
Right.
And I try to make people laugh anyway. It's when I do a lot of heavy songs, so you got to, in between, you got to, as in the gospel world, sometimes some of these songs, we do a lot of lighthearted stuff, but sometimes the songs hit the heart good, so you want to make them laugh in between,
Smart.
Or I try to.
That's smart. Well, I know also, besides how great Grateful has done and continues to do, and listening, to your past albums as well, like Less of Me and things like that, Chris, but, you're working on this new album. And you've got, half the songs done. You're like 60% done, and it's going to release this year.
It is.
Gospel album. And what's the name of this album?
Where My People Are. It's Where My People Are.
Wow.
And, so home means a lot to me. And when you were talking about that farm, it was not something, I was basically just went to school in Tennessee.
Right.
My mom would pick us up. My mom and dad were from the same small town in South Alabama, right on the Florida state line. And so my mom would pick us up the last day of school. The car would be loaded and we'd all go home. That was the only vacation I ever had growing up. My dad, he traveled 200 days a year or more with the Oak Ridge Boys back then. So the last thing he wanted to do when he got home was get in a car and go ride somewhere. So, and I get that now.
Right.
Because home it is a vacation.
Right.
If
it's also a great name for a studio.
Well, that's the name of my studio. It's House of Music and Entertainment, HOME.
I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Chris. It's like, to come up with something like that, but also to build this studio into your own house. And you've been producing and helping out a lot of other artists, which I think is also great work.
I have, and I was, doing most of that stuff in the Christian country world, and had several of them that went to the top. There's been a lot of #1 singles out of that little home studio.
Right.
It's a house of music that for others and a few for myself. But man, my daughter went over, during that pandemic, we got together with our family and we recorded 3 albums together as a family. And we had my dad, my brother Rusty, and my kids.
Such good songs.
Some of our close friends and associates that played on it with us. And
I know how much it meant to your dad too, talking with your dad about this and with the Goldens and kind of expanding. And you were telling me too before we came in studio, now being able to add in the kids.
Yeah, it's a musical heirloom for our family, basically. It's
Right.
a musical heirloom. And the kids now, they've taken more of a major role in it. But during that time, Elizabeth, she had some things that she wanted to sing outside of that. She's more of the bluegrass type style. It's somewhere between Broadway and bluegrass. So she was a theater kid and loves that world too. And she's a great singer, but she still has a lot of bluegrass roots that she loves. So we recorded an album on her, did a video.
And then I was going to bring up a new music video with Elijah.
Yeah, we shot it over, it's coming out this month too. So. We shot that when he was home from Brown University. He's a senior at Brown University. He's our scholar. And he come home for Thanksgiving. We shot a music video, so it's in the final stages of getting ready to be released, along with an album for him that I've been working on.
Right.
And he's more of that blue-eyed soul, Muscle Shoals type thing. So
Great voice.
we got a lot of different things, but whenever we all get together, it's got a kind of a unique sound because it's a little something for everybody, for all ages. And
well, and you're such a chameleon,
it's special.
Chris. You know, it's like when I bumped into you, you know, this past year, and we were at the Mustang Foundation event, and I was like going, Chris, I've been trying to get you on the show for a while. We got to make this happen. And I pinned you down, and we finally got this on. And it's like, I understand you might be bringing back a TV show and stuff too, kind of like you did in the past.
Well, I did have a little thing called Late Night Nashville, which was an internet-based.
Bigger than a little thing.
It was it was an internet-based show.
Yeah.
And we're wanting to do something else called, you know, Family and Friends, Golden Family and Friends, or the Golden Hour, or something like that. So we're
and
we're
you
in
used to
talks
do
with
so much
somebody
at
about
you know, Palace State, you know, to where you know. You
I did 14 shows of that. So when I was playing with the Oaks, I played whatever was left. I played different instruments, but I wound up on drums, and I had never really lost the reason that I took that Oaks gig anyway is my brother and I had a band called the Goldens. We started the Goldens in the mid-'80s. I recorded albums for CBS and
had some hits
and Capitol Records. And it actually did one on our own too, and done a lot of video and television and stuff like that, and toured for 9 years. Had the same band together for 9. That's hard to do without hit records.
That is hard. So hard.
But I started having babies instead of hits, so I took a job with the Oak Ridge Boys, and I never lost my desire to sing. And I used to tell people that I played drums to help support my singing habit. But I wound up getting to play some with Restless Heart. I filled in with them for about 6 months, and also played with the group Alabama for a few shows with them.
Yes, you did.
So,
yeah,
cool.
I mean, you are so talented, and I really hope you bring the show and everything back, because I know back when you were doing the live shows as well, you know so many people in the Nashville community and just in music in general, to where everybody wants to come and hang out with you, Chris.
Well, I also like playing behind them, you know. So it's like this past weekend we were down in Georgia with my friend Marty Rabin from Shenandoah. They've had a lot of success this past.
Oh yeah, I hope they make it. It's getting close for them.
Well, I'm talking about they kind of had a resurge, you know.
They really have. It's so incredible.
But my daughter and I, we backed Marty up. We did a show with him, and we wound up being in his band too. So that's kind of the concept of this television thing, is us having guests on. We'll do a song with them. We play with them, and we all play music together.
But you got to find time to get this album done.
Oh, it's already it's going to be done.
Because I know where your heart is too, and I know, you know, playing around, you know, you always enjoy, you know, bringing out some Christian music and gospel music and sharing that with people too.
That's been my main focus for the last 10 years, man. It's trying to make music that makes a difference and play for the one that gave me the gift. So that's what my main focus has been the last 10 years as a solo artist. I'm getting to do some of the secular stuff with the family, and that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
You know, I had the opportunity to be on the Opry a few times here this past year.
I saw.
It's always special when we all get together, you know. We all have our individual things going. I mean, Dad still has a side job with the Oak Ridge Boys. You know, I mean, how many people that's 85 years old needs a side hustle?
But you know, also, and you and I were talking too, Chris, your dad is so proud of what you guys do with the Goldens as a family.
Yeah.
And I can tell that means a lot to him, just like it does to you.
Well, it was something that came about as a healing process for us. We had lost our mother, and he was, you know, they were still really close friends, and he got us all together. We started mainly doing that, singing together, because he would always told us that music had a healing power. So we got together as a family and started singing songs. It's like, hey man, let's go record this. Hey, let's go do some shows with this. This is fun. And so we did. We kind of got to when we've been out doing that, it's kind of like we're taking that family vacation that we never got when we were little.
It just took a little while.
Yeah.
You know, and then it all comes back around. Well, I want to make sure for our viewers, Chris, with everything you've got going, with the new album coming out, obviously with you know, Elizabeth having a new album, working with you through the home studio, Elijah with his album and music video.
We got more Golden's music coming this year too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When do you have time to sleep?
Well, that's why these eyes are swollen.
You are a talented guy, but I want to make sure for our viewers, with your website, social media, everything Chris Golden, where do they need to go?
I'm easy to find. ChrisGolden.net. It'll lead you to all the socials. So ChrisGolden.net. You catch a fish with.
Well, and I'll tell you what, also there's going to be some great TV shows and other concerts, but I recommend most of all, go see Chris Golden live. No matter what band he's playing with, no matter who he's supporting, whether it's solo, whether it's the Goldens, whether it's one of the children, whatever. This is a talented guy, and you want to catch him at a live show, and you're going to enjoy him as much as I do.
Thank you so much.
Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. You're a great man.
Can't wait to hear the new album.
The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.